Now, it's been a while since we've talked about the Elder Scrolls 6 Redfall here on the channel, especially its release date. But today, guys, a new leak has just surfaced about the Elder Scrolls 6 and its release date, and also some news about Starfield as well. We're going to be diving into this leak in a moment, and you can take everything I say with a giant pinch of salt. Essentially, what I'm going to be talking about is if this leak is true or not, and if it is, what is it going to mean for the Elder Scrolls 6? What can we expect? So the leak itself was posted on the Elder Scrolls 6 fandom site. Now, the only reason I'm covering this is because the leak was made with a throwaway account, but it is actually oddly detailed to the point where I'm thinking, maybe they do know something. And thirdly, they actually provided a trustworthy moderator on Reddit with a non-blurry picture of a NDA that also coincides with when the trademark for the Elder Scrolls 6 Redfall was filed, and I'll talk about that in a moment. So I'm actually thinking to myself, this could be a legitimate leak, and I'm going to go for it now with you guys. Secondhand info on the Elder Scrolls 6 is the title of the post, and I'll talk about its legitimacy as we go through each one of the details that the post outlines about the Elder Scrolls 6. Now, before we go into detail about this post, I just want to let you guys know that the leaker suggests that the release date for the Elder Scrolls 6 Redfall will be Q4 in 2024, which is basically the fourth quarter, so probably around November sort of time, knowing Bethesda's release dates just before Christmas. As for it being in 2024, we'll talk more in detail about that later when we actually look at Bethesda's official public trademark for Redfall when its due date actually is. As the title suggests, I have found out credible information about the settings, stories, and a little bit about the mechanics of the Elder Scrolls 6. I won't be saying who or what my source is or how I got the information, but essentially he just knows someone who works at Bethesda, I assume. But either way, let's read on and figure out for ourselves how legitimate this information actually is. So, the Elder Scrolls 6 Redfall will take place in Highrock and Hammerfell. So, since we've already seen the trailer, we've already been able to distinguish based on the landmarks and the orientation of the land the Elder Scrolls 6 is going to take place, and it does indeed look like it is taking place in Highrock and Hammerfell. So that's not new information. However, we were wondering if it was going to take place in both of the provinces or not. And this man is claiming that it will take place in both provinces, which would indicate that it's going to be a huge game. As for the time period, it's going to take place 6 years after the events of Skyrim. The general political scene will be that Hammerfell is very well off and in a relatively stable state by Tamrielic standards, while Highrock is much more fractured among the many nobles and their territories, a bit similar to Skyrim in the sense that there will be very clearly defined sub-regions. But most of these regions will be warring against each other. This is because Bethesda wants to use this generation's hardware to create some huge epic battle scenes with dozens if not hundreds of characters battling on the screen in real time. I have a lot of doubt about, whether Bethesda are capable of doing that already, just from how disappointing Skyrim Civil War questline was and how they had maybe 20 NPC sieging Whiterun and then about 30 people defending it maximum. The Civil War line of Skyrim was very underdeveloped and underwhelming. However, that was some 8 years ago, and by the time, the Elder Scrolls 6 comes out, hardware could have moved on. In fact, in my last video, I spoke about the new technology Bethesda would be using in the Elder Scrolls 6, like photogrammetry technology, to create realistic environments, which can indeed look like the video footage you're seeing here. However, and in terms of Highrock's having lots of different nobles and regions all warring against each other, this is also accurate information according to the lore of the Elder Scrolls and Highrock. This is things we can look up on the Wikipedia page if you're interested. So it's all accurate information so far. Let's carry on here because he goes into more detail. The orcs, who add another dimension to the conflict in Highrock, were another major reason Bethesda wanted to create this scene. One of the main story missions features literally hundreds of orcs charging down a mountain and pillaging/burning down a city called Johanna. For From what I'm hearing, think the Siege of Whiterun from Skyrim, but 10 times bigger. So this is actually really exciting. Johanna is indeed a real city. Let me just search it for you guys. Yeah, here we go. Johanna. Johanna is one of the 8 major kingdoms in the province of Highrock. It's located on the northernest point. This is where it gets more interesting though, because Furhan, the Orcish city, is located on the top of a mountain, and below that mountain is located the city of Johanna. Furhan is in the Elder Scrolls Online, and it's owned by Orcish clan members, so it's essentially an Orcish stronghold. Now, if we go back to this article, it claims that the orcs are going to be running down that mountain and attacking the other city. So, you know, geographically, this storyline does make sense. Obviously, anyone could have researched that, though. What I'm most interested in, though, is the fact that he's claiming these battles are going to be 10 times bigger than Skyrim. Now, I'm not so sure this is really possible with the technology, even, you know, next generation technology. If you look at a game like Kingdom Come Deliverance, which we've played through on the channel, you'll know that that game was made with photogrammetry technology, and it's the most beautiful roleplay game I've ever played by far. However, the castle sieges, though they were large and they had a lot of NPCs, more so than Skyrim funnily enough, they still had limitations in terms of how many NPCs you could have on the screen at once. Even though it was released on last generation's hardware, I think even though we know the specs of the latest Xbox and PlayStation, they're still going to be hard pressed to run so many NPCs on screen at once with such realistic looking graphics. For example, if you take a look at Mountain Blade 2 Bannerlord, a game I've been playing recently on the channel, this game will handle over thousands of NPCs on the screen at one time, all shouting, attacking with their own animations and movements and AI moving around at once. It really puts a strain on even my computer, which is, you know, top of the range PC. Though granted, that game is currently in early access and they have a lot of work to do. What I'm trying to say is that is going to be a difficult thing to do, and if Bethesda can do it, and I think when Starfield comes out we'll get more of an idea about their next generation technology to see if this is actually possible. But, you know, that's a big claim, and I would be amazed to see if they could do that. But, like, technology-wise, it just seems so difficult. Carrying on reading through this article, though, we have the Darini Tower. Apparently, it's going to play a huge role in the main questline, and it will be visible from many places on the map, much like the White Gold Tower of Oblivion or downtown Boston in Fallout 4. The climax of the story apparently is going to take place on the Isle of Balfira, and as such, ship travel will be in the game. Well, that's really cool to hear. I mean, you know, The Witcher 3 had ship travel, and that was really enjoyable just to sail around the map and kind of appreciate the lands from the sea. I really like that aspect of the game. Now, the Darini Tower itself, a quick Wikipedia search will tell you a little bit about the tower, because it does exist in the Elder Scrolls Online. Though I've played the Elder Scrolls Online, I'm 99% sure you can't visit it. You can just see it from a distant shoreline. I have tried to swim to it, but you get eaten by slaughterfish. So according to the lore of the Darini Tower, it was meant to be the first structure that was ever made in Nirn, the land of Tamriel, and history kind of says that it was made after the creation of Mundus and built by the Aedra themselves. So this is kind of like almost a very alien structure we don't really know a lot about, you know. But this island is essentially located between Highrock and Hammerfell, in between, inside the Iliac Bay, and that's like, you know, the area of the sea in between those two provinces where this is located. Now, as far as ship travel goes, Bethesda intend to build off of vehicle mechanics developed for Starfield to allow players to traverse the Iliac Bay in ships. Apparently, they're going to use that system to create boats that can traverse Iliac Bay, and maybe we'll have some kind of Assassin's Creed naval ship battles. The current plan is that there will be several different ships to buy and some very light customizations for them. Okay, so they're not going to go into lots of detail with the customization options. They'll range from a rowboat to a big foresail pirate ship. Fantastic. They can all be crewed by NPCs in the same way that the player can assign NPCs to different jobs at a settlement in Fallout 4. I mean, that sounds interesting in itself. It sounds like it could be, you know, like the Fallout 4 vertibirds, that you don't control them. You can just jump in and get people to pick you up and sail you around. but you don't actually get to, you know, control the vessel yourself to the extent you probably want to. Though I could be wrong about that, I'm merely speculating at this point. By the way, speaking of mechanics, spellcrafting is back. Don't know much about it. So spellcrafting is something I'm really surprised they ever removed from the game. You used to be able to completely customize everything about a spell. You know, like a paralysis spell could paralyze someone between 1 second or, you know, 3 minutes if you wanted to in Oblivion. And I believe modders have made systems that allow you to, you know, create your own spells in Skyrim, so it doesn't surprise me that they've added it back to the game. It adds a whole depth of character creation and customizability, especially with builds. I would love to see that back. If it did return, it's definitely a fan favorite of things to come back. Okay, so the game world is not being sacrificed for this new mechanic though. Based on what I've heard and seen, Daggerfall will be the biggest city Bethesda has ever built. They're taking notes from CD Projekt Red for creating the feeling of a dense, bustling city, but they're also trying to maintain their motif where every character truly lives there and has a schedule and will do activities as they see fit. To be honest, like, CD Projekt Red kind of did that too, though. I mean, their NPCs are incredibly lifelike and interesting. And when I was invited to go and have a look at the Cyberpunk 2077 early reveal, I was absolutely amazed at, you know, the density of the population they've created and how it's very much like a real city, you know. Some of the NPCs were walking. However, it was something they said that they were going to be, you know, fixing and addressing. That is possible. It kind of leads me to believe that maybe Bethesda can pull off these huge 10 times bigger battles with the Elder Scrolls 6 Redfall. So more unique and interesting quests is also a priority. I only know of one specific example, but it sounds pretty cool. A light-hearted side quest is planned in one of the cities where the player is asked to babysit a trio of Khajiit children, kittens. Because they're not actually called kittens, are they? Because the mother needs to go to the market and get some fish for them. This, like most of the game, is still in the conceptual stages, but at the moment the Khajiit kittens are intended to look extremely adorable and innocent. They proceed to wreck the house and give the player rude dialogue, and one of them will even eat and kill a skeever. It's generally supposed to be very chaotic for a minute or two. Upon the mother's return, she'll be furious with the player, a speech check can calm her down, or the player can antagonize her to the point of combat, in which case the kittens can later be found in the town's orphanage. That is fantastic. So I'm interested to see how that works. I mean, it sounds like a very believable quest and something you might, you know, sort of stumble upon early on in the game. Obviously all scripted though, but this also errs on the side of, oh, they're going to be adding in, you know, actual children in Khajiit form and Argonian form, and maybe even some of the other forms of Khajiit we've been seeing in the Elder Scrolls Online, which was very exciting. But that's a lot of work in itself, so I'm interested to see how that develops. So then we finish off here. I also know that it will release in Q4 2024, and one of the DLCs will be in Stros M'Kai, which will cater a lot to the ship mechanic. Yeah, so Stros M'Kai is an island not too far off the coastline. You can also visit it in the Elder Scrolls Online. There's also lots of Dwemer ruins there as well, which is very exciting. But yeah, if you can truly sail the seas and explore that, that's quite exciting. I know that Bethesda and Todd Howard were quite keen on that kind of concept with Far Harbor and exploring kind of like the depths of the seas and what they've hidden underneath in Fallout 4. So I think, you know, that's quite appealing, especially with the Elder Scrolls Redguard, Todd Howard's little side project. But based on their release schedule of usually releasing a game once every 3 years or so, 2024 wouldn't actually fit with their release schedule, especially considering they'd have to release Starfield in between and then somehow finish off the Elder Scrolls 6 as well. That sounds absolutely ridiculous in terms of the amount of work that would be needed to do that. So I think 2024 just sounds kind of impossible in my opinion. Oh, and Starfield is coming next year, not this year as some believe. I mean, I don't think it's coming this year at all. I don't know who believes it's coming this year. It just sounds like a horrible time to release the game. So he later does reply to some comments. He says, as for Starfield, I know a little bit, but not too much. I know its release window and the fact that vehicles are being developed for it. Whether that's just spaceships or other vehicles, I don't know. Or maybe it's not even spaceships. That's just my assumption. But based on the small amount I've heard, that game is going to be insane. So is this leak actually legit or not? Personally, I don't really believe it. And even if it is believable, it doesn't really add a lot to what we didn't already kind of know or assume the storyline was going to be in the Elder Scrolls 6. However, I could be wrong. Feel free to email me if you are the leaker. And you want to prove me wrong. However, there is a Reddit post about this leak from the Elder Scrolls fandom site. And one of the moderators in private messages has confirmed that the person sent them a NDA contract, which was dated from 2018. Now, it wasn't the whole contract. It was apparently a picture of the contract of like the first couple of pages or something, which was outlined to be in 2018. Now, if we have a look at the official trademark for the Elder Scrolls 6 Redfall, that's just Redfall, which is the trademark owned by Bethesda. Doesn't have any connection to the Elder Scrolls 6. It's just a trademark to say they have the rights, the official rights to use the trademark Redfall, which is clearly like a future game they have coming out. We don't know if it's actually the Elder Scrolls game. There's been no actual confirmation or leak about that officially. However, you know, it's 99% certain that is probably the case. So if we have a look here, you can see that the application filing date is September 10th, 2018, which was the same date when this guy's NDA was apparently sent to him. However, that is quite strange because that would have meant that the NDA he has was signed all the way back in 2018 when the trademark was filed, which would then indicate that he either worked at Bethesda or worked very closely with them. So either he's pretending that he doesn't work there to hide his identity from anyone who might know him, or he's just lying because, you know, you wouldn't get sent an NDA contract that was from 2018 to sign if you were going to be talking about the game in business discussions or something like that. I worked on a few business projects myself with Bethesda, and I know them for liking to name their projects really strange code names. Like, for example, Somerset was like named Ice Heart or Ice something. I can't remember what it was. Or Frost Heart, I can't remember. And that is obviously a contrast because it's based in Somerset. You know, super lovely elven land, really high fantasy, very warm. They were calling it under a tag name related to cold, frost, and so on. That's why, even though I haven't seen the NDA contract myself, it's in some kind of Reddit moderator's private messages apparently. I don't think it's legit for that reason, you know, unless he actually works for Bethesda and what he showed them was an official contract. However, I think if you actually work inside a company, you wouldn't be required to sign an NDA because you would already probably be under that contract working there. Now, as for the release date of the Elder Scrolls 6 Redfall, if we have a look at the most recent update was on the 23rd of March 2020, so like a month, well, literally a month ago. And this was an extension to use that trademark. So essentially what that means is that the trademark can be used for another 36 months or so. So essentially the trademark can be used for another 2 years. So that would indicate that it's going to come out in 2022. But when it gets to that time, they will just renew their license and delay it again. And that's just how trademarks work, especially in the video game industry. They just want to make sure that they have that trademark because the game's probably based around this idea of, you know, Redfall or something. It's probably mentioned in the game's dialogue or something, I'm sure. Give the video a like if you did find it informative. I hope you found it interesting. I mean, all of these things, considering the game is based in Highrock and Hammerfell, will probably be in the game anyway. Whether or not this source is true kind of doesn't matter to an extent. It's just interesting to talk about. Guys, if you enjoyed the video though, please do give it a like to help support me. And if you want the latest news on the Elder Scrolls 6, then make sure you subscribe and press the bell icon, and then YouTube will let you know whenever I release a new video talking about it. I usually don't like to release videos just talking about any other nonsense, but this one I thought was rather interesting and unique, so I thought I'd mention it and have a little discussion with you guys about it. I know it was a long video though, so I hope you guys enjoyed it. Have a great one, and goodbye.